Hey, welcome everybody, and this is my recap of the Harris Chain Tournament of the 2022 MLF Tacklewarehouse Pro Circuit. All right, I finished 112th place out of 157 or 158. I'm not sure which of the two it was, but anyways, not a good finish. Obviously, very disappointing as far as what that does for my yearly goals. You know, combine that with a 47th at the first one in Sam Rayburn, you know, I'm behind on points to make the championship. My other goal was to qualify for the Bass Pro Tour, and having a 112th place finish almost guarantees that goal is already out of reach. So going forward, what that means is it's kind of what you do anyways. You just take each tournament at its own, one at a time, do what you can with it, and move forward on to the next one. Just see how it shakes out. So, you know, it's disappointing. I'm not happy about it. Never am. Never happy about having a bad performance. Don't know really what I could have done. Well, I needed to do something different, but I don't know what it needed to be. Basically, this is what I did. Okay, I was boat 5 the first day, so I got to go exactly where I wanted. Nobody was there. So I went to what they call Banana Cove, where there's the best hydrilla in the Harris Lake. It's where it is. And so that's where I went. And immediately I caught a couple fish instantly, including my biggest fish of the first day. And but then boats started filling in all around me, and the bite kind of got tougher. Guys were still catching them, but then I was still catching them. But I kind of moved out of that sweet spot, and just because I caught some random fish, just in random areas through the hydrilla in practice, including my biggest ones were like singles all by themselves. So I just kind of moved out of that area and just started fishing the other parts of the hydrilla bed. It's like about 80 to 100 acre size hydrilla bed. So I just kind of got off and away from the crowd on my own. And I was still catching some fish. Ended up, I don't know, after a couple hours, 3 hours or so, I had probably caught about 8. Well, it was. I caught 8 keepers, and so I was still catching them. Then it got to be about 11:30, and that was when I caught my last one. I fished until about 12:30, and then I wanted to check a couple offshore places, a couple shell bed spots I found. Went and checked all that, the couple that I liked, including one was in pre-practice that I found, and I never fished it in official practice, but I had 10 bites off of it. Went there and I had nothing. And then I tried a couple other places, a couple isolated brush piles, this and that. I hooked one like 13-incher, got him up to the boat, and he got away off a brush pile, but everything else was failing. So then I went back to Banana Cove at about 2, fished there for about an hour, never had a bite. Thought I had one fish bump my crankbait, but never had a bite. And so then I ran back to the weigh-in, giving myself about 25 minutes on a couple spots back there. First spot I wanted to go to, a guy was sitting there. So then I went to this brush pile, where I caught a nice one in practice, didn't catch nothing. And then and that was basically it. So that was day 1. Put me in 91st place with 11 pounds, 10 ounces. You know, it was from there I'm thinking, okay, you know, it's a familiar position. For some reason, I just have a tremendous knack at just not getting it done on day 1 and then having to rally hard on day 2. And that's what I was faced with again. Another hard, I'm like, okay, I got to have that big rally on day 2, which, you know, sometimes I can do it, sometimes I can't. More lately than not, I have been able to do it. So but it just didn't happen. Being about 153 at the end of the field, I knew I wasn't going to get the sweet spot in Banana Cove. So, but that's where I was going anyways, because I caught enough other fish, random fish, that I figured I could at least catch some. So that's where I went, and just started fishing, and fished out. I started out and away from most people, because I did catch some over there in practice and in the first day of the tournament. So I started there, and then I just gradually started working towards the sweet spot. And I didn't want to go right through the sweet spot, because I would have had to freaking drive over people's lines to get to it. So, you know, that ain't cool. So I just kind of started off on my own and fished around and nothing, no bites, no bumps, no nothing. And over where the sweet spot was, you know, there was an alley to get in through there, so I took it. But this is after like an hour and a half. You know, some guys that started there kind of start wandering away and making their own, you know, things just starts dispersing a little bit. So I got over there, and you know, the guy that was right where I wanted to be, he already had a limit. And by now, by the way, I did catch one on my way there. It was a line burner, and what a line burner is, it's a fish that we had a 12-inch minimum size for this tournament, so a line burner would be a fish that you could barely get to touch that line. And I didn't really work with it too much. I just kind of played with it, couldn't get a touch, and I thought I had a touch. I'm like, well, I'll throw this. I almost threw it back. I almost just threw it back. but I decided to get out the weigh board or the measuring board, did it, and seems like it touched one time. So I'm like, all right, I'm just not going to work. I'm not going to sit here and fuss about it. I just threw in the live well, thinking I'll have this thing called out, you know, in a couple hours I'll be throwing this one out. So anyways, got over to that sweet spot. That guy that was right where I wanted to be, he already had a limit, including, I was watching him land a 3.5 pounder. And then I saw another guy that was near that sweet spot. I seen him catch one. So the fish were still biting, but not for me. I could not run into a fish, just wasn't happening. So I fished around in there, and then one thing I noticed is the water was a little muddier, just in the whole area in general. We had so much wind, I don't know if just as the lake stations back and forth, I don't know if some lake current got in there and brought some of that muddy water in from the main lake, because that area is protected by that big island out there. But maybe some of that muddy main lake water might have filtered in there, because it definitely. And the first thing I noticed when I got in there, I thought the water was a little higher. So it just seemed the way the pads were laying, it seems like it was just up a little bit. It could have been my imagination or what, but the muddier water was not my imagination, because I mentioned that to another pro out there. When, you know, I just simply asked him, hey, do you think this water's muddier? And he's like, yeah, it's definitely muddier. And so I think that might have had a little something to do with my lack of success, but you know, there were still guys catching fish there. So day two, you know, I was just going all over the hydrilla, just randomly fishing, trying to find cleaner water, which I did, but I couldn't get bites there. Went to some other waypoints, couldn't get bites there. Finally, I finally gave up on it. I'm like, I don't know what time it was. It had to be at least 10 o'clock, maybe 11. And so now I'm like, well, let's just try some of my shell bed spots that didn't work the day before, but you know, maybe today will be the day. So I did a bunch of that, some brush piles, some shell bed stuff, and couldn't get a bite. Could not even get a bite. And it's that one spot, man, that's where I had 10 bites in pre-practice. It was such an oddball spot. I was just hoping those fish would stay there, but they didn't. So at this point, I'm like, well, I think what I got to do is I just got to go fish some canals and try to just get fish in the boat anyways. Oh, but let me back up. So near one of my shell beds, I decided to just, it wasn't far off the shore, so I decided to swing into some docks that were there. And literally the first dock I go to, I caught 2 keepers. They weren't big. They were 1.5 pounds a piece. I caught them back-to-back casts. So of course, then I spent literally like an hour and a half fishing all the docks along that area, and never had another bite. Not another bite. But thankfully I had those 2 because I ended up weighing them in later. So anyways, I got the 2.5 pounders and then the line burner, and that's when I decided to go just fish some canals. So that's what I did. Pull into this first canal, and literally within 5 minutes I caught my biggest fish of the day. It was my kicker fish. It was nearly 4, it probably didn't quite weigh 4 pounds, but it was close to 4 pounds. And by now it's like, I don't know, it's probably about 3 o'clock, and I have I got the latest check-in at 5:30. So now I got one kicker in the boat, 2 1.5 pounders, and a line burner that's probably literally like 10 ounces. But I mean, I just caught this nice fish, and I got a couple hours left, and now I'm like, okay, this is when the rally begins. Right now, I got one. I only need 4 more now, really, 4 or giant fish and another decent fish. So, anyways, I ended up camping out in this one canal. And I didn't catch any more big ones. I caught just filler fish, just more 1.5 pounders. I was able to cull out the line burner. I was able to cull out another one of my 1.5 pounders with another 1.5 pounder that was probably an ounce or 2 bigger. So I ended up, by the end of the day, I probably caught, I think I caught 7 keepers by the end of the day, but just the one good one, and the rest were just 1.5 pounders. And in the canal, what I was doing there is I was flipping a little Texas rig. I was also throwing a Nico rig, and then a weightless Wacky Rig Senko. So caught fish on each one of them baits. I don't know. I guess if I would have fished canals the whole darn day, who knows what would have happened. But anyways, that's what it was. So let's get to the rods now. This is the part that I kind of like. This part I like, just pulling out the rods and showing you guys what I had rigged up, and tell you a little story behind each one. Okay, so let's get to it. This is a Nico rig I was throwing. It's a 5-inch stick bait with a lead weight inserted in there. That's what I caught my kicker bass on in that canal. Thank goodness for that. And that fish, man, it fought really good. It tried every trick in the books to shake the hook on that one. And the way they had been going in the tournament, I missed it with the net a couple. It's hard to net your fish by yourself, but just the way they had been going, and I missed them with the net a couple times. I'm like, oh man, it's just, I'm gonna lose this fish, but lo and behold, I got him in, and then that was a real confidence boost. When I actually got him in the net, I'm like, yeah, see, it's not all bad. You can do this. You got a couple hours left. And I did catch more fish, but just not the right ones. So, all right, what else we got? Here's another Nico rig on this basically a little ringworm style bait. That bait didn't do squat, just diddly squat. Although I didn't throw it a lot. I didn't throw it a whole lot. Okay. These are, I guess we're gonna get 2 out at a time on this deal. Okay, there we go. Oh, there's so many rods in here. They just, each rod holder's got 3 rods in it a piece. All right, here's a jerk bait. Didn't throw it much. First day I caught 1 non-keeper on it out of the hydrilla bed in Banana Cove. When I got into a little bit clearer water, that's when I tried that. And got one. I thought I had a big one when I hit it, because I felt the bite, and before I knew it, my my line had run like 15 feet to the right, and I could feel it like ripping through hydrilla, and I'm like, oh God, this is gonna be the monster. And no monster. It wasn't even a 12-incher. So this, oh, here's weightless Wacky Rig Senko, which caught me one of my fish out of the canal. I like throwing that weightless bait in them canals, and the Nico rig, so it was kind of a switching between the couple of fish. All right, here is this probably caught me the most fish the first day when I was fishing that hydrilla. This is just a little balsa crankbait, dives down about 4 or 5 feet, and I put some chartreuse dye on there. It was a silver foil. Put some chartreuse dye on there, and I don't know why they didn't hit it the second day. I mean, it was doing a great job the first day. Second day, it was just a huge letdown. This bait really let me down here, because I caught some decent fish and a really big one on it in practice. This is a crankbait with one of those L lips on it, and just big letdown. Big letdown. I threw it quite a bit. First day, threw quite a bit the second day. Thought I had a bump on it that first day, but I don't know. Big letdown. Next, one of my keepers out of the canals came on this Texas rigged ringworm. This bait, this was a billy rub bait, and they made this. This is a good Florida color, and well, I caught them in pre-practice. I caught a lot of fish on this thing. It's Texas rig, but I don't know what the deal was. I never caught a fish on it. Here we got a smaller version, similar to the billy rub, same color, different brand. And you'll notice, now this is the one I rigged up for swimming through the hydrilla. Now you'll notice, why is that sinker on backwards? Well, when I was watching the streaming from the elite tournament that was here a couple weeks ago, the one fella that did well, the one Japanese angler, I forget his name, he was using a football head swing head for his weight, because he wanted it to catch the hydrilla. He wanted it to actually catch the hydrilla instead of just slide through it like a bullet sinker would. So I decided, for me to catch the hydrilla, I would rig it this way. So sorry to say, I got one in practice on this. I didn't throw it a ton. Never caught one on the tournament. I don't know if I would recommend doing that or not. School's still out on that deal. You know, I'm almost tempted to just do regular Texas, rig that sinker the right way, but I didn't. And school's still out. All right, here's another bait. This is another billy rub bait. It's a grub, and it's got kind of a thick plastic tail, but it's got some nice action to it. And actually, I caught some fish in practice on this. In fact, I fished some other baits on these shell beds. Fished some other baits, did get nothing. Then I'd throw this in there, and I actually caught some fish on this that ignored other things. So I thought this was going to be a nice weapon to use on pressured areas, and got skunked with it. It's a newer bait that I started using. School's still out on. I mean, I don't know. I kind of like it, actually. This, maybe I should have thrown this more. In pre-practice, I actually threw this quite a bit and caught some fish on it. And in official practice and tournament, I hardly threw it at all. That would be a 1/2 ounce vibrating lipless crankbait. This is a weightless swimming worm. Different brand than the Billy Rob. And this is good for, like, you swim it across the surface. It's through you know, vegetation that's up on the surface. And it really wasn't, I don't think it was really set up for that kind of fishing with the cold front we had, so I didn't use it that much. This is a 3/4 ounce chatterbait. Caught a nice hybrid bass on it in the second day of the tournament. Gave it enough time for it to, gave it a good chance for it to show me it'd work. Didn't. And I went with 3/4 because I just wanted to run a faster retrieve through that hydrilla. Maybe that was a mistake, I don't know. Could have been. This here is another Balsa crankbait. I caught my biggest fish the first day on it. Caught another keeper on it the first day of the tournament. Caught fish in official practice, including well over 5 pounds in the official practice. Day 2, skunkola, not a bite on it. Disappointing, for sure. So, all right, there's that one. You always, when you go to Florida, you always got to have a rod rigged up for flipping mats. And this was kind of a, this one is for flipping lighter mats, 3/4 ounce sinker, Billy Rub snatcher bait on there in a popular Florida color, black, blue with the silver flake. Didn't throw it that much. Didn't catch nothing on it. But that's only because I didn't throw it that much. Flipping wasn't much of a deal. I gave it a little bit of a deal. Here's my other mat flipping rod. I never even used it. So that's got a 1.5 ounce sinker. And flipping mats wasn't really my deal out here this week. So I never threw that one either. Here's an interesting spinnerbait where I crushed them on Kissimmee Lake one time. Just crushed them. And ever since, I haven't really done much with it. I've caught some. Caught one on practice. It's this spinnerbait right here. It's a 1/2 ounce spinnerbait with a dark colored skirt with some gold tinsel weaving into the skirt. I don't know. Maybe I should have threw it more. I don't know. It didn't show me much. I don't know. School's out on that spinnerbait. Man, that, you know, that one time though, on Kissimmee, it nearly put me in the top. It should have put me in the top 10. I had a monster get me in some spatterdock pads down there in Kissimmee with that spinnerbait, and I actually got them out of the spatterdock, got them out of the pads, and it was a clean shot between me and between the pads and the boat. And then he jumps about, I don't know, 15 feet out through the spinnerbait. Man, that was a heartbreak. That would have for sure put me in the top 10 of that tournament. But as it was, I ended up like, I don't know, it was like 12th or 13th or something like that. And that was after a bad first day of the tournament. It was a huge second day rally, and it just fell short. That was like an 8+ pounder that I jumped through that one. So, but I've never done squat on that spinnerbait since. So, I mean, you catch a few here and there, but haven't had a lights out kind of a day. This is a drop shot rig I got set up. I've done well with it on the chain out here in the past, fishing in the hydrilla. And I don't think I ever freaking broke it out. Not in practice, I never used it. Never used it in the tournament. Probably should have. Things might have been different, you know. All right, what do we got here? I think we got another crankbait. Yeah, another another crankbait I never threw. Had it ready to go, never even threw it. This rod here. Okay, that one doesn't want to come out yet. Let's see, I got, for those of you wondering, I got 5 more rods, including this one. Here's a crankbait that I really love. I love this crankbait. It puts out a tremendous thump. And it's got kind of a fat lip on it, and I lost the one out of a brush pile on this. That was it. Caught a couple in practice, but I don't know, didn't do much. Whatever. So yeah, so we're getting down to the last few rods here. Here's a deeper diving crankbait. I've caught some big fish on this chain with this crankbait, but in a different color. But with the water seemed a little dirtier, so I went with this brighter color. And I didn't throw it a whole lot, threw it some in practice and in the tournament on some shell bed type stuff. And 0. But in the past, it has worked in the past. In fact, the first year I fished here, I weighed 23 plus pounds the first day, and I had one over 6 on that bait, and then like a 3.5 on that bait off a shell bed. So, hey, this rod's got nothing tied on it. I could have just as well used this rod the first freaking 5 hours yesterday and had the same performance. Go to Florida, I guess you better have a rod rigged up with a frog of some kind. Never threw it one time in practice or in the tournament. And then the last one is a Carolina rig, which I threw a little bit, had some fish in practice. I think I caught 1 fish in practice on that bait on this Carolina rig. Threw it some yesterday on a couple of the shell beds, and just wasn't happening. So there's all the rods. There's my story. So that's it. Out of the Harris chain. We're out of this place. Over.